Okay, welcome students to the Cherry Creek HBCU, HSI, and NASI Virtual College Fair. Thank you so much for joining us. You can use the Q&A button at any point to type questions to our presenters. Your camera and microphone are off, so our presenters cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many sessions, so please do sign up for additional sessions. And this session is being recorded and will be available to view within a few days at strivescan.com/Cherry Creek. And with that, I'll turn it over to Joy.
Thank you, Layla. And as I stated earlier, thank you to StriveScan for being our virtual partner on this really important event. This is our third year doing this, and with the pandemic, we were a little nervous that we wouldn't be able to pull this off, but we kind of pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps and said, we got to do this for the kids. And so thank you to all of you who agreed to be on the panel tonight. I think our students value the conversations with all of you. So let's see. Yeah, so we have a mixture of schools, small to large, some colleges, some universities, and for students, if you don't know the difference between a college and a university, the easiest way for me to explain that is universities tend to have graduate students on campus and colleges don't. So they're going to be the undergrad, strictly undergrad students who are earning a bachelor's degree. So just again, welcome to all of you. I want to acknowledge in the space right now, the local alumni and the current student that we have on our panel for being here. We couldn't do it without you. Before I introduce you, let you introduce yourselves as a panelist, let me just kind of tell you how it works. Panelists are going to introduce themselves by just restating your name, the school you attended, your major, and maybe just a little bit about what you're doing now in your career or your future career. And then I have a list of questions that tend to come up from some of our students. So I will ask the questions and then we'll ask the panelists to kind of join in as you feel appropriate for you to answer. So we'll start with introductions. We may have one more panelist joining us. And if he's able to do so, he'll just kind of pop in and we'll catch him up. So if we could just start, I'm just gonna start by looking at my screen. Jean Fashaw is the first person on my screen. So if Jean, if you'll introduce yourself and then call on one of our next panelists to go ahead and introduce themselves.
Good evening, my name is Jean Fashaw, Morehouse College, class of 2006, studying my BA in Business Administration and the concentration in Management. I'm also at Morehouse School of Medicine getting my Master's of Science in Biotechnology. I teach 6th grade math and the grade level leader at Strive Prep Montbello and the treasurer for Shot Talk Live, a community organization here in Denver. And involved in a lot of other things. If you ever have any questions, just ask. And I'm gonna pass it to my Spelman sister, Taylor Parish, down there.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Taylor Parish. I am a graduating senior health sciences major on the pre-nursing track at Spelman College. I'm originally from Denver, Colorado, born and raised. And after Spelman, I will be attending Emory University, pursuing my master's of nursing.
Who you calling on, Taylor?
I'm gonna call on Heather.
Hi, everybody. I will be on camera in just a second. I am multitasking, had some scheduling changes today. My name is Heather Powell. I am alumni from Fisk University, class of 2000. My major was in English and psychology. And I am a Denver native, and I also have a son who is in high school and hoping that he will be attending a HBCU as well.
Heather, are you able to see the names on the screen to call on either one of our two that are left?
I will call on Shalilah.
Yes, you're close. So my name is Shalilah Dillard. I graduated from Hampton University in 2007. My major was psychology with a minor of Spanish. I'm a Denver native as well, and I am a founder and executive director of a nonprofit here in Denver called SED Enrichment Program, which recruits and supports students of color and gifted education. And I have a high schooler as well, which I have been training to go to a HBCU as well. So yes, I think that's it.
And last but not least, Ms. Janae Hughes.
Sorry. Yes, Howard, take it away.
It's okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Janae Hughes. I'm a Denver native as well. I went to Howard University, graduated in 2018. I majored in international business, concentrated in marketing, and I am now a law student at Loyola University of Chicago School of Law, graduating May 2021, so in just a few months.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think we'll just jump in with the questions, students. So just making sure, Layla, they can type questions into the chat if they have questions. I think so. All right.
Yes, they can.
Okay, great. So students, if you have questions, I have a list of them, so we'll go through those. But if anything goes unanswered, please type your questions in the chat and we'll try to get to all of those. So for the panelists, I'll just kind of read off a question, and if you don't have to respond to everyone if you don't want to, but certainly if you would like to, we would love to hear your perspective. So the first question is, tell our participants how you found out about the HBCU as an option and why you chose the HBCU route.
This is Heather. I can jump in. So, like I said, I'm Denver native, born and raised. I graduated from Montbello High School. And so at the time, there was a program called Higher Ground that was coming to our school and looking at different HBCUs, because I didn't really know anything about HBCUs. And I also was probably trying to get as far away from my home at the time. My sister was in Tennessee at Knoxville College. And so I also, once I visited the campus, the admissions director, shout out to Anthony Jones, who's now at Howard, but he gives a heck of a tour. And I fell in love with the campus. And, you know, just being a graduate from Montbello at the time, community school, being surrounded people who look like me. When I visited the other Denver campuses like CU, I did go visit UNC and all of those. It just didn't feel like a good fit for me. And, you know, so I was really wanting to be somewhere where I can excel with other kids that look like me.
I can definitely, excuse me, I can definitely agree. Growing up in Denver, in Montbello, actually, I went to George Washington High School. So the opportunity to go somewhere that was not Denver was very important for me. And I spent some time up at CU's campus in Colorado College and CSU. And as I looked around, I was like, I don't know if this is where I want to be because there's not enough color around. And then I took a tour of Morehouse and I just knew immediately that that's where I belonged. So it wasn't too hard for me to make that decision, especially once I seen the campus and saw people that I didn't get to see a lot of growing up out here.
Yeah, that was the same for me. I actually was a part of it was like a minority college tour visit my senior year of high school. And they took us to Colorado College, CU Boulder. But my experience at CU Boulder, that visit was like, they were, the students there were looking at us like we were a species they had never seen before. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And then I also was in like AP classes at South High School. So, and I was the only Black female in those classes the entire 4 years. And I was like, I'm not doing this to myself again. So I actually, like, my first option was to go to Howard. But then my brother knew of a girl that came over and talked to me about Hampton. And I just like virtually looked at the campus and was like, yeah, this is where I want to be. So that's really what made my decision to go to a HBCU, just having that shock of being looked at crazy on white campuses.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I can go. I had honestly never even heard of an HBCU prior to entering high school. And so I met someone, a mentor of mine, through an organization called Friends First. It's a mentoring organization. And she decided to take a group of students to DC to speak to Colorado representatives, encouraging them to create and vote on legislation supporting mentorship programs. And on that trip, she took us to Howard. That was the first time I'd ever, that was the first time I'd heard of an HBCU, and that was the first time I'd seen Howard's campus. And I think, like my fellow panelists, just instantly fell in love. And I mean, it really was a feeling. I was born in, or not born, but I grew up in Green Valley, which at the time, I don't know what it's like now, but a predominantly Black neighborhood, and eventually transferred to different schools, and at one point was the only Black student in my class. And, you know, I kind of got through it, but didn't love the feeling. And so I knew that I wanted to go to a college where I would feel comfortable being in the classroom, but also, I knew it was an opportunity to take advantage of opportunities that might have been, that maybe I would not have encountered had I gone to other colleges.
I guess I can go. Unlike everyone else, I'd always dreamt of going to an HBCU. My mom went to an HBCU, Tuskegee University in Alabama, and just always hearing about her experiences and her friends' experiences who went to other HBCUs, it just seemed like an experience that I had not only wanted to have, but needed to have. So I only applied to 2 PWIs, and one of them was just because my high school made me. The other one was just to keep other options open, but my ultimate goal was to always go to an HBCU.
Thank you. Thank you. Just, oh, go ahead.
I just see that question in the Q&A that asks if you regret anything about attending. And I read that's the best decision I could have ever made. The friendships that I made while I was there, still good friends today. How many years later? I don't even know anymore, 14, 15 years later. And the connections that I have, I can call them right now, and if I need something, that they would have my back. And they tell us that first week of school made us hold each other's shoulders and run through campus together screaming, I got my brother's back. And that's something that's stayed with me for quite some time.
Thank you for that. I was just going to point out, I think I made said to put the questions in the chat, but you should be using the Q&A. I think, Layla, that is what I should advise students to do, to put the questions in the Q&A versus the chat.
Correct.
All right. Okay, I'm going to move on to question 2. And some of you might have touched on this a little bit, but how did you land on your particular HBCU? What factors influenced your decision? And did you have any hesitations?
Morehouse gave me the most money scholarship-wise. FAMU was actually my top choice, and Morehouse, please don't be mad at me. And then Tuskegee was like number 3. So I was choosing between those three, and then I got the most scholarship money, academic scholarship from Morehouse. So, and then I went to campus and I was like, yep, this is where I need to be. Spike Lee, Martin Luther King, Samuel L. Jackson, just go down the list. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the place.
I always hate telling this story because it's so much shade. But honestly, the reason why I chose Hampton was because of the student that I told you I was that I talked to that was from Hampton, And she, there's a huge rivalry between Howard and Hampton. And she was like, no, don't go to, don't go to Howard, come to Hampton. We have the best campus. It's like a family. And, I didn't know any better. And she's like, have you ever been out of state? I'm like, no. She's like, then you don't want to go there. But honestly, I have love for Howard. I have friends that went to Howard. It's an amazing school. But there was a lot of internal HBCU shade going on there. And that's honestly why I chose it. But Howard was my first choice. Hampton was my second, and Spelman was my third. So, and I actually received a full scholarship from the Daniels Foundation, the Daniels Fund. So I could have went anywhere, but she had a really good argument, and so I chose Hampton.
I can actually follow up on that because, Howard was the only school that I applied to and not the only school that I applied to, it was the only HBCU that I applied to. And so upon getting accepted, it was just a matter of how I was going to pay for it. And I also got the Daniels Fund, which made the process a lot easier.
I think for myself, I had applied to several HBCUs. Actually, Spelman was my top choice, which I did get accepted to Spelman, and I also got accepted to Clark Atlanta, but they took so long to respond, just as far as for my acceptance, and then they didn't have any housing available. And then, like I said, I visited the campus at Fisk and kind of fell in love with it. So that's why I ended up there. And Fisk is a private university, so there was no scholarship money that they gave me, but I also had a couple of scholarships, like Sachs Foundation scholarship. Getting financially cleared that first week was a whole nother life lesson that was character building moments for myself when I got there.
For me, the way that I made my decision was going on different college tours. So I know things are a little different because of COVID, but if the schools that you're interested in have any virtual tours, I'd say take advantage of them, because the best way to find out if the school is for you is by immersing yourself in the school and in the culture and the students, and really seeing if it's going to be a good fit for you. So that's what I did. And my top 3 schools ended up being Spelman, North Carolina A&T State, and Howard. I received the most money from Howard, Tuskegee, and Clark Atlanta. However, by the time I got to Spelman and actually took place, well, we had a virtual student event or whatnot, but I went to that. But on top of just going on my regular college visit to Spelman, it was just the place that I knew was going to make me happy and feel the best about my decision. So as far as financial aid, there's ways to work around it, and, loans and scholarships and grants. So do what you can.
I'm glad you guys talked a little bit about, and there's a question later about money, but I'm glad you guys talk about that, because I feel like sometimes there's this rumor out there that HBCUs don't give a lot of money. And so I'm glad that you guys have had some different experiences. And students, we're going to come to your questions too. I'm going to keep going because I think some of your questions are also on my list. So question number 3. What would you say your school is most proud of, or what are some of the noteworthy traditions?
Morehouse was, I just never forget, I don't even know if I should repeat that, but we just go around. I don't know, Morehouse guys are a different kind of dudes. I remember our first year, they tell us to walk around telling every other school to lay their degrees down. And you can tell a Morehouse man, but you can't tell him much. The Daryl Morehouse hymn, I'm not gonna sing, I'm not gonna hurt your ears with that today, but there's a lot of traditions that stick with me today. And just, I remember the first day, they put all the freshmen on stage and said, look to your left and look to your right, and one of y'all's not gonna be here in 4 years. And so that immediately stuck with me, and the amount of excellence that walked through that campus is something to be proud about, and that goes for all HBCUs really. But Morehouse to me is like Black Ivy League, and the expectations once you leave that campus are very high.
To go based off of what Jean was saying, the traditions that Spelman have are just amazing. As you guys know, Spelman is the #1 HBCU. We take very strong pride in that. So we, like on the first day, we're learning the Spelman hymn, and we're, meeting our older Spelman sisters and siblings, and really just embracing the Spelman history. And we have several events where you have to like go through and learn the history, and you do trivia and scavenger hunts, all that stuff. So
did they wake you up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and drag you through campus, making you do this history lesson?
No comment.
I think that's what I love about HBCUs is that it's like you're gonna learn the history here, whether you want to or not. And I think that is very powerful because it speaks to like why we even have HBCUs. I just remember like freshman week and like meeting our big brothers and sisters and having to go to a university class, which was like we had a whole semester class of learning the history. And we're required to do it, and I was just like but really what sold me from what that student was saying was like it's so family oriented, and it truly was like the dorms have like their little rivalries too. And I was in Virginia, Cleveland, so we called ourselves the VC Cuties, and like all the different dorms had their cute little names, and we had like a step show, and it was like so fun and so cool. So that's like really what when I talk to like my fellow Hampton alumni, we talk a lot about like that freshman week and what we did there.
I think what makes Howard pretty notable is that 5 out of the 9 D9 sororities and fraternities were founded at Howard. I'm not Greek, but I think that is again something very notable. And I guess to not touch on what's been said, there is a very strong sense of community, and I think kind of with all of our HBCUs, the alumni network is extremely strong. And so, you could find, at least with Howard, you could find an alum anywhere you go. You could find an alumni chapter in any city or state. And so I think there's a huge sense of community there.
I would agree with all of those things. Certainly Fisk University is notable for the Jubilee singers. That's what my background is there, that, went around to save our college singing and raise money. They are still notable today. Fisk is noted in a lot of history. I know, movies, books that Fisk was there about great debaters. One of the greatest things that I like is that we were taught by professors that wrote the books that other people were learning from. So, we got like W.E.B. Du Bois and Langston Hughes, and it's just rich in culture. And so I do think that, each university has their own community and set of history, but I do think we all have some similar rites of passage that happens and bonding for that freshman orientation week that occurs. So it brings us all together. And I am Greek. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. So yep, shout out to Howard, because it was established on Howard's campus, Pi chapter.
All right, thank you guys. Can you talk about some of the opportunities that you took advantage of at your HBCUs, things like leadership, study abroad, research opportunities, connections to your professors, things like that?
I know as a business major, at the time, I know they have a lot more programs on campus now than when I was there. But even then, we had presidential chats where we got to meet. I met the CEO of Walmart Canada. I got to sit at the table and have a conversation with Bernie Marcus, who was one of the founders of Home Depot. I met Jim Brown, Spike Lee. Oh man, Ricky Waters, Harry Belafonte, Eric Dyson. Just like the amount of people that come through, not just Morehouse or the AUC campuses, but all HBCUs. You're gonna see people that you're not normally gonna see and be treated ways that are more as a teacher, culturally relevant or culturally sustaining or culturally affirming, because everybody looks like you and understands who you are for the most part. And just to answer the question about being a little bit disorganized sometimes, I feel like as people, sometimes we kind of hold our own institutions up to higher standards than others. Sometimes you do have to jump through a lot of hurdles. But in the grand scheme of things, it's going to make you stronger, because once you get out of school, you're going to be jumping through hoops and doing a lot of things, especially as a person of color, that there's a tax that you carry by being different than everybody else at your job for the most part. So nothing that I went through at Morehouse do I regret at all. Like, I appreciated every little thing, a little bit longer wait in the registrar, things getting processed a little bit longer. Sometimes that's financing, more so than it being an HBCU. So enjoy the good of what an HBCU is, not necessarily some of those rumors, and go learn and find out for yourself, because it'll be worth it in the end.
Along those lines, to our panelists, what is one or one or two myths about HBCUs that you want to dispel?
I think for me, one myth that I was constantly coming across during the college application process was that HBCUs couldn't provide quality education. And to me, it's frustrating, because you look at schools like, the several HBCUs that we have sitting here, and we're like, we know the experiences that we've had. We know the amount of Black excellence and the quality and the caliber of Black excellence that, attend these universities and colleges. However, we're constantly told, oh, well, go to Yale or go to Harvard or do this or do that. And I just feel like HBCUs are looked down upon because people just lack the education to take the time and knowledge to learn about HBCUs and, the great qualities that they have. And to answer your first question, some of the great opportunities that I was able to take part in while at Spelman, where I was able to apply to the HCOP program at Morehouse School of Medicine and conduct research on the association between chlamydia trachomatis, health disparities, and pelvic inflammatory disease. So during that time, not only was I able to conduct research alongside of a mentor at Morehouse School of Medicine, but I was also able to connect with several researchers and mentors at Hbcus, which is a pretty big research conference that takes place every year in Anaheim, California.
I think a myth that, and it's kind of similar to Taylor's as far as preparation goes, but a common myth that I heard is that you wouldn't be able to acclimate in the world after graduating from an HBCU, and like you won't know how to talk to white people. But the truth of the matter is, one, not just Black people go to HBCUs, and I think that there's this idea that maybe they're not as diverse, when in fact there's more of an international diversity. There's socioeconomic diversity. And again, kind of what I was saying earlier, there are different opportunities that come across with these HBCUs that might not happen at other institutions, specifically PWIs, for example, and kind of Jean was talking about this as well. We had like Michelle and Brock there, we've had CEOs, and we've had, big names from kind of all different areas come to Howard. And, you know, if you go to, you know, PWIs, they might come, but who knows? And so the idea that you wouldn't be able to acclimate is just, I mean, just false. HBCUs prepare you for the real world just like any other university. I think that's been proven based on who's all graduating from these universities and who's in these leadership positions, or even people locally who are making opportunities more accessible for people of color.
And just to piggyback on what she was saying, at Morehouse, they make us wear suit and tie, whether it's 95 degrees in humidity or if it's 40 degrees and freezing cold outside. Like, we're in shirt and tie. We have to be in crown form every Thursday, shirt and tie, suited up. We have to take professional development. And it's at Morehouse that I learned that it's okay for us and how important it is for us to be able to live biculturally, meaning that when we're in certain spaces and how to carry yourself, but still holding that identity true to yourself as well. And I feel like PWIs can address that for us because there's not enough of us there. And there's not an understanding of what it takes for us to be successful in certain things. So contrary to that stereotype, I feel like an HBCU prepares us better to thrive in different settings where we may be a huge minority or the only person of color on the entire staff, and still holding true to who you are and still thriving and being excellent in everything that you do.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of Jean, I think that's where a lot of schools miss their mark. I've like worked in high schools and in colleges, and you know, when I talk to college students or even high schoolers, they have a hard time with their identity, period. So like if they're white, black, it doesn't matter their you know, racial background. And I think that's the really cool thing about HBCUs is that you are forced to work through your identity, and you come out really loving who your people are and where you come from. And I learned my history in like every single class. Like it was math class, you name it, every class I was learning my history. And I had never experienced that before. I didn't learn my history in my other, like in high school or middle school. So that was amazing too. And I think that's super unique to HBCUs. Like Taylor was saying, I was able to go to a lot of different conferences. My major was psychology, so I met like a lot of the social psychologists that I like looked up to. I met them at the conferences and got to actually like have dialogue with them. It was really cool. I was, you know, coming from Denver, I was like, I don't live near water, so I'm gonna take this sailing class. I don't know nothing about no boats, but I know that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I took a sailing class and learned how to capsize the boat, and it was just so cool. And to speak on what Janae was talking about, like um, there's so much diversity within Black culture, and we only see one part of it. We just see African Americans, but there are Black people in the African diaspora all over the world. And all of my friends, literally, like I don't know if I have one African American friend from Hampton. All of them are from like the Caribbean or Africa or Central America or South America. And so you get to see that diversity that's really cool. And you just get to love on your people, and you don't really get to do that in a lot of different environments. And so when you do go out into the real world, you are more prepared, like everyone is saying.
One of my favorite things, this is just a complete side note, I was just thinking about how she mentioned Barack, but watching TV and seeing people I went to school with on TV is probably my biggest thing. Like watching Tenet and watching JD do his thing and watching Bakari Sellers on CNN and just going down the list and seeing like how powerful HBCUs are just in this election with Warnock and VP Harris, now I almost called her Senator Harris, I don't know. Keisha Lance Bottoms at FAMU and Mayor of Atlanta. So you can go down the list and find examples of excellence from all of our institutions.
Great. I think one of the students or participants had a question about Greek life, and I think you guys touched on it a little bit, but the question I had for about Greek life is similar to what the student was asking. So Greek life seems to be popular, but we know that all students that go to HBCUs don't join a fraternity or a sorority. Anybody want to chime in on why you decided to, or why you decided not to?
I mean, I don't want to say why. I just like I'm not the one for all that. I'm friends with everybody, like alphas, omegas, Qs, iotas, sigmas. But that wasn't really my thing. But the Greek life is huge, especially on HBCU campus. If you're gonna do it, that's the place to go, in my opinion.
I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And like I have friends that are in fraternities and sororities, not in there. The decision you make is your own. For myself, my sister was also an AKA. I will tell you, growing up in Denver, I was surrounded by Deltas. And so, I really thought that I was going to be a Delta and going when I went to college. However, when I got on the campus, it kind of flipped for me, and the AKs were really cool. And that's what kind of precipitated my decision to pledge AKA. So, certainly Greek life isn't for everybody. And it's different campus to campus. I think coming from Colorado, we're not really exposed to that a lot here. And so, you got to kind of figure that out for yourselves. And, some kids have legacy, they have a whole family full of, Greek life in their family. But, I do think in the community that it creates as a school, also in joining a sorority or fraternity is also a lifetime network. I still talk to my line sisters till this day, like we're in each other's lives and things of that nature. So it's just an additional thing there. But again, it's not for everybody.
So the years that I was at Hampton, we had some situations prior to where not all the fraternities and sororities had like active chapters. I won't go into why, but some of the stereotypes of what of fraternities and sororities with like hazing and all that. But so the years that I actually was considering joining a sorority, but because of all the like heat that was taken, they were only really taking legacies, which Heather was kind of talking about, where it's like if you have a family member or like a family member in the sorority or fraternity, so they were really doing that there. So there wasn't a lot of room for me to join at that time. So.
I see a question on here
Yeah.
that I wanted to address, and I think a few people are typing, but it didn't disconnect me from other races. Just because you go to an HBCU doesn't mean that everybody is Black. And I think it was Shalilah said, like, we had people, I met the entire African diaspora, like literally I met somebody from every state in the United States, literally, that looked like me. The valedictorian the year after I graduated was actually white. There was a kid that transferred. He was from Avon, Colorado, and he spent a year at Morehouse. We had people transfer from Spelman, cross enrollment between Stanford and Morehouse. I think it was Stanford. And the people that you meet, especially as a business major at Morehouse campus, I'm sure it's the same at all the other campuses. you're gonna have, you got to remember all these big organizations that want that embrace and want diversity in their are going to be on HBCU campuses actively recruiting. So you're going to be interacting with people of all backgrounds from all industries that are trying to tap into the best of the best that can be found on HBCU. So no, I did not feel disconnected. It actually brought me closer to my people and made me confident to thrive amongst people that may not look like me or be from where I'm from or operate the way that I operate.
Okay, I think we have about 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure that we get all of our participant questions answered. So I had more, but these are also great questions. So I'm just going to kind of read off some of them, and if you guys want to chime in, that would be great. One of the questions is, in what ways have HBCUs made you the person who you are compared to who you were before you made a choice to go to an HBCU?
I would love to talk about this. I talk about this all the time with my students. So I can speak about myself like this, so I will, but I was like the most culturally confused person that you would ever want to meet because I was only surrounded by I was in gifted and talented, and I was only around non-Black people. And so I just thought I was like the world, and as far as like diversity was concerned, and I didn't really know my history and who, like, the greatness that Black people, African people come from. And so I really had like severe identity issues, which is really, and I was aware of that at 18. So that's why I was like, I need to go to an HBCU because I know that there are some parts of me that I don't know about, and I would really love to learn more about like my heritage and where we come from. And I think that's really an unfortunate part about public school and high schools, is that we don't teach who we truly are, so we can't value who we really are, like, deep down inside. And so it literally changed my life. It changed my life. Like, now I wouldn't have founded my organization if I wouldn't have went to Hampton. I wouldn't have taught in the schools that I taught in if I didn't go to Hampton. I wouldn't be, rearing up my children to go to a HBCU if it wasn't for this. So I owe a lot to Hampton and the HBCU experience, for sure.
Another question, do you have any critiques about going to an HBCU or things you would want to change about your school or your experience?
I would say for myself, I mean, we can always come up with critiques and how to make it better. Certainly, I graduated 2 decades ago, right? I think the experience and everything that it is what needs to happen, because it's character building moments. And so, even all of the trials and tribulations that I went through, I think it built me into the person that I am. And it kind of gives you that fortitude to keep it moving. We always give feedback. I think, we're harder on our people than anyone else. Like, we go in on us pretty good. And so I do think that, universities have done a good job in trying to keep up with the times and make things better. But I would just say for folks just to kind of keep an open mind to things, because again, like I said, coming from Colorado, I just think we're not exposed to a lot of things. And, it is eye-opening into, you want to kind of keep your mind open to what things are, because we're like, oh, that's, too Black or whatever. Sometimes it can come off of that we're not exposed to, just with the way things are. And so I guess that was my critique in everything on this end of it, of educating yourself about Black colleges, and keep your mind open to it.
All right, guys, unfortunately, we are out of time. Oh my gosh. So Thank you again. I know that there were some questions that were unanswered, and I know that some of the panelists were able to type in some answers, so I appreciate that effort to reach those students. So thank you again for taking time to be on the panel. I know that I always learn so much from alumni, from HBCUs. And I just want to say thank you for participating, and for participants who are signed up for additional, for the actual like college fair. I think it's time to log off of here and then be logging into those opportunities, and I'll see you in some of those chat rooms as well. So thank you again to our panel. Can't say thank you enough. Appreciate it. Thank you, Layla.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. When you log out, there will be a quick 4-question survey. We'd love your feedback. Please sign up for more sessions. And again, you can find this recording at the same website where you signed up for this. So thank you everyone, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.